Welcome to Roll Credits, where movie lovers get the trivia they didn't know they needed. Made with a little help from AI, so double-check your facts.
Always a solid rule to live by.
Right. Today, we're diving into Euphoria. And did you know Zendaya became the youngest Emmy winner for lead actress in a drama for her role as Rue?
Which is just like an incredible milestone.
It really is. And before we get into it, drop a comment with what we should cover next, old or new.
Yeah, we love seeing what you guys want us to unpack.
Exactly. So for today's deep dive, we're looking at this massive stack of sources about HBO's Euphoria. And following up on Zendaya's historic win, we really want to explore the blueprint of this show. Like, why does the premise feel so emotionally heavy and authentic?
Well, it's actually a pretty complex origin story. If you look at the DNA of the show, the initial framework wasn't even American. It's actually an adaptation of a 2012 Israeli series with the exact same name.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. The co-creator of that original show, Ron Leshem, he obviously came over to serve as a writer and producer on this HBO version.
Along with a pretty unexpected producer, right? Drake.
Yes. Rapper Drake is a producer, and he wasn't just slapping his name on it. He was reportedly sitting in on table reads. But, you know, the real mutation of the show happened when the American creator, Sam Levinson, got involved.
Because he injected something super autobiographical into it.
Exactly. This wasn't just a Hollywood pitch. Levinson has been, fiercely open about his own harrowing teenage experiences. He spent most of his teens cycling through hospitals, rehabs, halfway houses.
That's so heavy.
It is. I mean, he said in an interview that by the age of 16, he had just resigned himself to the idea that drugs were eventually going to kill him.
Wow.
Yeah, he basically made peace with his own early death. So he took that really profound, specific teenage trauma and poured it straight into the character of Rue.
Which gives us this really raw, spoiler-light premise, right? You're basically following Rue and this ensemble of teenagers as they navigate addiction, identity, and these intensely complicated relationships.
Right, but that raw portrayal has sparked a massive amount of debate.
Oh, totally. The sources mentioned this fascinating study about it. Watchdog groups have heavily criticized the show for, potentially glamorizing drug use, sex, and violence for young viewers.
But then, on the flip side, people with actual substance use disorder have praised it for being incredibly accurate.
Right. There was a study from a web and social media conference that looked at this. They used an AI model called Word2Vec to analyze comments on Reddit.
And they were specifically looking at a hidden population, right? People who post in both the Euphoria subreddit and 18 different drug-related subreddits.
Exactly. And the hosts of this study, the researchers, found that the general audience constantly used words like glamorizes. But the users with actual lived drug experience, they surrounded those same concepts with words like real and accurate.
It's just wild how the exact same visuals can be interpreted so completely differently.
It's almost like the show acts as a highly stylized mirror. Depending on your own life experiences, you either see a terrifying cautionary tale or a deeply validating reflection of your own hidden struggles.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
But it makes me wonder, how does Levinson's personal history manifest in the actual script writing? I mean, writing something that raw must be exhausting.
Oh, it is. And he writes purely on emotion. He actually actively refuses to use a standard writer's room.
Wait, really? For a massive HBO show?
Yeah. He said if he had to sit in a room with whiteboards and pitch plot points, he'd be too terrified to even show up. He writes the episodes himself because he wants to follow the erratic emotional state of the characters rather than a traditional plot outline.
That sounds incredibly risky. And if you're writing based on pure, unpredictable emotion, finding the right actors has to be a totally unorthodox process.
Oh, the casting process was completely bizarre. Let's start with Zendaya. Levinson had her on his vision board for Rue right from the start.
But she was a Disney star.
Exactly. She was so polished, and because of that, she had massive imposter syndrome. She actually asked Levinson, "What in my career have I done to prove that I can handle this role?"
Which is crazy to think about now, considering she won the Emmy for it.
Right. But then you contrast her with Angus Cloud, who plays Fisco.
The guy with the chicken and waffle store.
Yes. He had zero acting experience. He was literally scouted off the street in New York while working at a Brooklyn chicken and waffle restaurant. He thought the casting offer was a complete scam.
I mean, I would too. And then you've got Jacob Elordi playing Nate Jacobs, who is just intensely toxic on the show.
And his real life at the time was so tough. When he auditioned, he was practically homeless and going through an awful time. He was so stressed he even forgot his lines during the read.
Wow. And didn't Sydney Sweeney almost turn down the role of Cassie?
She did. She initially rejected the audition offer because she was really uncomfortable with the required topless scenes.
So how did they get her on board?
Levinson actually sat down with her and discussed the creative vision. He explained why it was necessary for Cassie's character arc, and that convinced her to do it.
And then there's Alexa Demie, who plays Maddie. The note said she was feeling super discouraged by bad auditions.
Oh, this is the best part. Right after reading for Maddie, she went to a deli and literally found a cheese named Euphoria.
No way, a cheese.
A cheese. She took it as a cosmic sign, and it obviously worked out.
That's hilarious. But the most incredible story to me is Hunter Schafer, who plays Jules.
Yeah, she had never acted before either.
But she didn't just act, right? She actually co-wrote and produced a special bridge episode with Levinson.
She did. During the pandemic in 2020, she was dealing with a severe depression, and she called the process of writing that episode a lifeline. They used it to explore her own psyche and what really goes on in the heads of young trans people.
It sounds like Levinson assembled the Avengers of teenage angst, mixing a Disney superstar with a guy making chicken and waffles. Does this mix of polished actors and complete novices actually help ground the show's chaotic energy?
Absolutely. Because Levinson didn't want polished television acting. He wanted raw vulnerability. And to match that, he had to completely change how the show was shot.
Right, which brings us to his famous directive to his production designer and cinematographer. Fuck realism.
Yes, he told them to abandon strict realism in favor of what he called emotional realism.
So, not how a high school actually looks, but how it feels to be inside these teenagers' heads.
Exactly. And to get that look, they drew heavy inspiration from a photographer named Todd Hito.
His stuff is amazing. Very moody suburban landscapes at night.
Right, using these deep cyans and harsh golds, it creates this alien, almost sci-fi feel to youth. It makes the suburbs look incredibly isolating.
And they really push the boundaries of practical effects, too. Like for the scene where Rue gets high at a party.
Oh, the rotating room.
Yes. They didn't use CGI. They built an entire hallway and bathroom on practical gimbal.
Like a giant motorized seesaw.
Exactly. And the room literally rotated around Zendaya while a techno crane dollied in. It created this genuinely disorienting, gravity-defying experience for her as an actress.
Which is just a massive technical feat. But then, on the flip side, you have the balance of that stylization with just raw, unscripted reality.
Like the fight scene with Rue and her mom.
Yeah, played by Nika King. Levinson's script for that scene literally just said, Rue and her mom have a fight.
Just one sentence.
One sentence. He told them to improvise and just go at each other's necks.
And the result was terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
The sources said it was so physically and emotionally violent that Zendaya picked up a piece of broken glass.
Yeah, and the director of photography actually hit the back wall trying to get out of their way, and the camera cut out.
It was so intense that Zendaya felt physically sick afterwards.
And Levinson actually burst into tears in his office.
It's fascinating. They literally engineered a multi-million-dollar rotating room to simulate a chemical high. But to capture the emotional high of a family fighting, all they needed was to turn the cameras on and step back.
It really is a testament to the cast, and that emotional storytelling bleeds right into the physical appearance of the characters, too.
Yes, let's talk about the makeup and costumes. Because the cinematography captures the environment, but the makeup and wardrobe serve as the character's emotional armor.
For sure. The makeup artist, Daniela Davy, her work on this show became a cultural phenomenon. She used 1960s pastel tones, rhinestones, graphic liners, but all to reflect character arcs.
Like Rue's makeup. It's usually super messy, but during her struggles, they use chunky glitter to mimic tears.
Right, the famous glitter tears. It's beautiful, but heartbreaking. And then Jules has these dreamy, colorful looks that reflect her fluid identity.
And Maddie uses these razor-sharp eyeliner wings.
Sharp enough to cut through anything in her way.
Literally.
Yeah.
And she uses that heavy makeup as physical armor to hide her actual bruises.
It's a defense mechanism. And you also see Kat's makeup evolve from very minimal to bold as she gains confidence.
Notice how none of this is just about looking pretty. The makeup and clothes are practically a mood ring for the characters. When you watch Cassie's makeup get sharper and heavier, you're actually watching her innocence slip away.
Oh, 100%. And the costume designer, Heidi Bivens, took the exact same approach. She completely bypassed traditional Hollywood costume houses.
She went straight to Instagram, right?
Yes, scouring Instagram to find global indie brands to capture authentic Gen Z style, mixing vintage with streetwear.
And you can see it in Rue. She wears a mix of Dickies workwear, Zendaya's own personal Converse chucks, and even a little boy's tuxedo in one episode.
It perfectly balances her masculine and feminine energy. And then for Maddie, Bivens custom-built those iconic matching sets, including that famous purple replica of an IMGA cutout outfit.
Oh, that outfit was everywhere online.
It was, and Cat's style evolution was heavily inspired by Thora Birch in the movie Ghost World, moving toward punk, restrictive corsets, and fishnets.
So every single visual detail is just saturated with meaning. But there's one final layer to this sensory deep dive: the music.
The sonic landscape.
Right. If the camera captures the world and the makeup captures the identity, the soundtrack captures the characters' souls.
And Levinson had a very specific, totally wild vision for the score. He described it as Danny Elfman meets Jesus meets gospel.
Which is an insane combination to pitch to a composer.
Totally. But he brought in Timothy Lee Mackenzie, better known as Labyrinth, and it was a perfect match.
And Labyrinth didn't work like a traditional film composer, right?
No, he worked incredibly spontaneously. He blended 70s rock, orchestral arrangements, hip-hop, electronic music, and he and the editors would literally cut and play his tracks backwards to find the perfect texture.
Which creates this really unsettling, unsteady feeling, like in the Carnival episode.
Oh, that is a masterclass in scoring.
Yeah.
The bouncing strings and echoing percussion perfectly mimic the nauseating sensation of the carnival rides.
And the menace of the plot, too. It's so tense. And the way they use needle drops is brilliant, like using Arcade Fire's My Body is a Cage.
Yes, using that to contrast the quiet horror of Cassie's hospital visit with the boppy, upbeat music of the school dance.
It sounds like Labyrinth wasn't just scoring the scenes, he was scoring their brainwaves. Is it fair to say the music acts as the internal monologue these teenagers are completely unable to articulate out loud?
That is exactly what it's doing. And the ultimate synthesis of all of this, sound, emotion, visuals, happens in the season 1 finale.
With the song All For Us.
Right. You have Labyrinth and Zendaya's vocals mixing, but then the gospel choir literally appears on screen.
It's such a surreal moment. The choir physically uplifts Rue as she relapses. It perfectly encapsulates the horrific beauty and, the temporary relief of her addiction.
It's devastating, but you can't look away.
Which actually leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with before we wrap up.
Let's hear it.
We've talked about how Euphoria uses incredible makeup, custom wardrobes, gospel choirs, and rotating sets to depict some truly dark teenage trauma. It makes you wonder, when a show makes the ugliest parts of adolescence look this breathtakingly cinematic, does the sheer beauty of the art change the way we, as a society, process and consume real-world pain? It's something to think about the next time you see a glitter tear makeup tutorial online.
That is a really powerful question to end on. It's a tension the show itself constantly wrestles with.
Yeah, it really is. And that wraps our deep dive into Euphoria Season 1. If you enjoyed unpacking this intense and visually striking story, follow Roll Credits and share it with your fellow fans. And don't forget to drop a comment with what movie or show we should cover next, old or new. We'll be back soon with more trivia, more movie magic, and maybe a few more unforgettable moments.